Hello? Huh? Yeah. Yes. You need some? Thanks for bringing me some.
You can have that over
Appreciate it. I'm not allowed. You know, the older you get, the less you're allowed to do. You want to come sit in the lap? All right, I have to warn you guys, this gets weird every time.
Every year.
It never fails. It's going to get weird, but that's cool because I don't know how to be anybody but me. Like, it's got to be exhausting being somebody else. So I just am going to be me. And the way I am with her, look, don't get offended and don't take up for her because she can bring it too. Like she acts all nice and stuff, but she can bring it. So I get in trouble with my mom. You can't talk to her that way. I'm like, well, don't defend her too much. We're going to show you what it's like to be married, fights and all. So we wanted to do this marriage series. And a lot of times when we do this, the very first thing that happens is we inevitably have a single person or a widowed person or a never been married person, a divorced person. And they're like, well, I'm out. I guess you're not going to be talking to me for the next however long this takes. Some of you guys' marriage is real messed up. We may take a little longer. I don't know how long this could last the rest of the year. I don't know. But one of the things we do is I want to point out things that help you in relationships. We were going to call the series Relationships, Do's and Don'ts, but I wanted married couples who are struggling to make sure that they knew we were talking about marriage right now. If you're single, you have relationships, hopefully, in your life. You have relationships with your kids, and the stuff we're talking about is going to help with that. You have relationships at work. You have relationships all over the place in your life. And you may not be married now or have no intention of getting married, but neither did I. So it happens. And so maybe you can pick up some stuff here that'll help you. One thing I found, and this is just a free good advice, is if you're in the dating world, whether you're divorced in dating or whether you're in a blended family in dating or whether you're hopefully you're not married in dating. But hey, man, if you are, maybe that'll help you. I don't know. No, don't. That's not. I'm sorry. I got that look again, like, don't say stuff like that. Well, some of you guys are married and dating.
We date every Friday.
Yes.
We date
That's
every
what I
Friday.
meant. Oh, where are y'all thinking? So the thing is, you should not be dating people that you wouldn't intend on getting married to. I tell my daughter this all the time, man. Don't date a cowboy. No.
And I tell her, date a cowboy.
Because you just never know, right? Like, you don't know when it's going to happen. And then you're just stuck forever listening to country music. So, anyway, we wanted to hopefully share some things that'll help you if you're dating, but mostly we're going to focus on marriage. So you're going to have to do a lot of the application to yourself, and hopefully, you guys are intelligent. Hopefully, you can handle that. So, I want to start out by saying our marriage is far from perfect. My daughter can testify. We fight. If you've ever been in the band here, you know that we have tension sometimes. Somebody in our relationship is headstrong, and I don't know why she's like that. But it's very hard for us easygoing types to deal with that sometimes. So we conflict. One thing that I found out as we started doing this is we've done a lot of this because we struggle. So we've worked through this, and so I can tell you it works. There are times where you want to smash her with a shovel. I understand that. It happens. But you don't. You don't do that because you're married and you're not supposed to do that. And we've learned stuff that help us from killing each other when we get in those places. Now, I said this last week, this is all free for you. Like, one of the biggest problems I found in marriage is finances. And one of the only things that'll save marriage is counseling. And one of the most expensive things you can do is counseling. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna help you. We're gonna give you some big picture stuff. But guys, if your marriage is struggling, you got to put in the work. I'll just tell you straight out, there is no magic bullet. There is no easy part of marriage. There's nothing that's gonna be just like, oh yeah, we just did this and it just fixed everything. It's not that simple. We can't fix your marriage, but you can. You can do this. We're going to give you a bunch of information. So, you know, one of you in the relationship is probably a note taker. That's the way it works in our relationship. The other one keeps it right here. Everything. So, take notes. You know, do your homework. And this is going to help you out. I want to give you something to write down before we start. There is a website that we utilize constantly, whether it's in helping other people or in working out our own stuff. This is self-help, professionally led, do-it-yourself marriage counseling. And to me, it's better than going to a stranger because everybody puts on a front in front of a stranger. Nobody's going to go to a marriage counselor and be real. But man, you close the door to the bedroom and it gets real, like, no, that's who you are. I mean, that's stuff you don't do in front of other people because you're nice. This helps. It's called marriagebuilders.com. Marriagebuilders.com. And it's just really... Man, it's Christian, but that's because Christian marriage counseling is the only marriage counseling that'll ever work. Okay, God created you. God knows how you function. God created marriage. He knows how marriage works. His way is the way that works. And so that's why we use that. Plus, we're a church, so, you know, you got to... No,
And a little bit of background. Honestly, the only thing that has saved our marriage is Jesus Christ. The only thing. So, and you may be sitting out there thinking, well, you know, I know Jesus, but my husband doesn't. Or my husband, you know, or the man may say, well, I know Jesus, but my wife is checked out on that. Well, you know, we were in the same boat. So it's not impossible. We were married, well, I was 18, yes, and he was a little older than that. Yeah, so we've been married.
40. Come on.
Wow.
She's like 60.
Oh, whatever. Anyway, we've been
I
married.
was like 16.
Actually,
She was like 18.
how many years? Next week. Next
Next
Sunday.
week we'll be married.
23.
23 years.
23 years. So it can happen. But we didn't start out this way.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. No. So we didn't start out this way, but we both did have upbringing in church. So I think that's a huge thing too. Our parents, we both went to church as a child. So I think you parents, get your kids in church. I really think because...
It's amazing what you pick up even when you don't want to.
Even when you don't want to be there.
Right. Anybody ever grow up in church and like, I hate this, but then you realize when you get older, like, I know a lot of stuff about church.
Well, so we both were raised in it, but like I said, we got married at 18. We weren't, you know, on the straight and narrow there with Jesus, okay? I moved directly, like the day I graduated I was married in high school. That was even
Don't
worse.
do that.
Worse.
Justice.
So, yeah, I was married my senior year of high school. Trying to tell me. Yeah, and that was very stressful doing that in high school. But, yeah,
when you know, you know, though, right?
That's right. When you know, you know. And I even got a detention one time. I even got licks when I was married. Really? How can that happen? Okay? Anyway.
I wouldn't sign her note either.
we got married and he moved. He wasn't with me. I still live with my mom, okay? So we got married, he moved because he was in the Marine Corps, so he moved out to Memphis or wherever. And then the day I graduated high school, I moved to California to be with him. So, and we've been, ever since away from that. So, that was stressful too. But at the same time, no, we still were not going to church. We were not doing any of that stuff. So he goes to, trying to give you a short, okay? He goes to Japan for 6 months. So I come back home and live with mama because I didn't want to live in California by myself. I'm tiny. So I found Jesus during that 6 months. I came back to him and he did not.
I didn't even know I was supposed to be looking for him.
Yeah. So, needless to say, when we come back together 6 months later, those of you that have those relationships where you're gone and back, it's hard.
We have experienced long distance marriage too,
it's
so we
tough.
We know.
So when we came back together 6 months later, I was thinking this is gonna be so awesome, And he had a really bad drinking problem when he came back, and it wasn't good. So we really just with that time. So anyway. We end up moving back to Texas, and I'm going to church. He is not, or he does some, I guess, when we make him, right, Ma?
My mom.
We make, oh, she's not here, okay.
Because my mom would gripe at me if I didn't.
Yeah, so it was tough. It was very tough. In fact, it nearly came down to, you know what, this is not going to work out. And but me and his mother, I bought the book Power of a Praying Wife. If you don't have it, it's really old, but it's really good. And I started doing
I want to tell you guys, if your wife gets that book, cash it in. I mean, it's over. Yep. You better just give it up then.
Yeah, that book is amazing. So I started doing, the things that were in the book, and wow, now I got a preacher. So, it works.
She overshot a little bit.
Oh, a little bit. But if we were just talking the other day about some of this stuff, and we were like, how would we have stayed married, if we didn't have Jesus as the number one? He's first.
There's just no way.
So there's no way. It was hard. But it can happen if you really get in there and really, put yourself first with God, and then start praying for your spouse, and things happen. Things happen.
Just because you're a follower of Jesus doesn't solve it, though. I just wanted to make that. This church has almost killed our marriage more than once, and it's hard. And you've got your own thing. We have the church, but you've got your own thing, and it's just tough. It's really tough. But we're going to share with you some principles and some ideas and some things, hopefully that will open your eyes to things. Most of the marriage problems we have is just our eyes weren't open. Now when we have those conflicts, they don't last because we're like, well, because I'm always right, and I tell her, this is what you're doing. So, no, a lot of times, no, I'm not going to say that out loud. They'll record it.
Well, we love
Sometimes
these marriage
I'm
series.
not exactly right.
Sometimes. Most of the time. Whenever we do love doing these marriage series, though, because it makes us come back and remember, oh my goodness, we have not been doing this, or we have not been doing that, and that's why we're struggling in this area. So we love doing this because it really brings you back in. So
okay, today what we want to do with you though is we want to see we've been through this where it's like there's just conflict and it gets to be such a heavy load, and all of this is going on, and you're so frustrated and you can't express your frustration. You don't even know how, because every time you bring something up, it just escalates. Have been through that? Where everything in the marriage is eggshells, and you're just there's this tension and this everything hanging out there. Well, hopefully today we can open up some wounds and give you some things to look at and discuss to find out exactly where your marriage is at. And I want to say this too. We've been married 23 years, and I don't think how long you're married. I was telling somebody this the other day. I think it would be easier to divorce after 23 years than when we were younger, because when you're younger, you're more resilient and more passionate, and when you get older, you get more set in your ways and less compromising, and so it's easier to just walk away. So if you're older, if you've been married for, 20, 30, how many people in here have been married over 40 years? Wow, that's pretty good. So, it's possible. That gives us all hope. Thank you. One, that will live that long, and two, that will stay married. How many of you have been happily married for 40? No, you don't have to answer that. Don't answer that one. I want to talk about, if you got a pen real quick, I want you to write this down because this is important. There are basically, and you can go through this on the website, but to just get your mind thinking, I want you to realize there are three major states of marriage, or in any case, relationships. One, and the best, that's intimacy. That's when everything is just peachy keen, man. It's clicking. You're just sweet to each other, man, and you just are finishing each other's sentences, and you're king and she's queen, and you can do no wrong, and that's all great, and that don't happen. No, those times are what you strive for, and that's why you go through the work. Because marriage is what I found is it's ebbs and flows, it's ups and downs, and it's these great times that carry you through the rough times, and so that's a place where everything is just clicking. Sometimes that's clicking, and you don't really know that it's not, because when we were first married, this is why it's easier to stay married when you're younger. Like the first 5 years in, piece of cake, because it's like
I agreed with everything you said.
Everything I said was golden. And then one day you wake up and she has a mind of her own. And that's when it all starts. And the thing is, it's not been like that ever. But hey, it's just like she's a giver, I'm a taker, and we're just, man, everything's just clicking right along. But it's when you start to be comfortable enough with you that you become honest and say, this isn't working for me. And then it's like, wow. Then there's this conflict. And that's the second state of marriage, is the state of conflict. The state of conflict is where everything starts to rise. There's that tension. And it's like, I'm not giving anymore. And it's like, well, I'm not giving anymore. And so there's this tension that starts to be created. You start being less able to compromise, and you start to not care about her feelings or his feelings, and you stop trying. You stop the effort. Everybody, if you're married, you know what I'm talking about. You have to try, and when you get in that state of conflict, it's like when you go to bed, you just roll over and face the opposite ways. I mean, that's the state of conflict where it's like, just, you know what, I'm going to do my thing, you do your thing. That's dangerous. That's when you need to get to work, because if you don't get to work, that's going to carry you forward into what's called the state of withdrawal. And when you go to the state of withdrawal, your marriage is in danger. It's 911 time for your marriage. You do whatever it takes. You spend the money to get counseling. You do whatever it takes, because when you go to the 911 place in marriage, you're one incident away from losing it all. And sometimes it just seems like it would be easier to cash in. But anybody who's been through a divorce knows divorce doesn't go easy. I've never seen a divorce that was like, oh yeah, man, they just went their own ways and everything was just great. It don't happen that way. If you think divorce is the ticket for you, I challenge you to go sit through a divorce court one day. It's the absolute ugliest thing I've ever experienced. I had to be a witness in a divorce case, and I was like sick. They made these two people who I thought both of them were great. They both looked like animals. It looked horrible. So, like, you think divorce is going to be just peachy keen and easy, man, go sit through a divorce case. It's not like that. And it destroys, it wrecks your life, it wrecks your confidence, it wrecks everything, because truly what God places together cannot just be separated by men. It doesn't work that way. you will forever be tied to your ex-spouse. There is a connection that you went through because you married that you cannot break. And as bad as that goes, it will follow you forever, and it's rough. So you don't want to do that. So when you get to this state of withdrawal, what happens is instead of avoiding each other's needs, you start using their needs to hurt them. You become offensive with each other. Instead of just you do your thing and I'll do my thing, you start to be on the attack, and you start to be the aggressor, and it really starts a war. And once that war starts waging, guys, there's only one way out. Somebody has to step up and go, I don't want this anymore. And do you know how hard it is to step up and say, I don't want to live this way? You know how hard it is to step up and go, I withdraw from the conflict. And somebody's willing to revert back to the state of conflict where you're not aggressive, but you're just kind of surviving. A lot of times when that happens, the person that you're at war with gains power, and it becomes even more brutal, which makes you want to throw back into that again. Do you see how hard it is to get out? So we don't want to reach that level of conflict. You don't want to get there. We want when we start getting and start feeling this uneasiness and this conflict, you want to address it right then and right there. And I think this is where most marriages are. I'd say probably less than 10% of you guys are at a state of intimacy, because it's just kind of general marriage. About 10% of people are usually in intimacy. And there's about probably, I don't know now, man. It seems like a lot more because of just economics and pace of life, but it seems like there's a growing number of people in complete withdrawal, like at war with each other within their marriages, and moving out or whatever, and so there's still probably this big chunk in the middle that lives in this state of conflict. So we're really going to address this state of conflict and how to get out of it. If you've gone past that, you need to surrender. You need to do whatever it takes to get back to the state of conflict where you can start communication and work your way out. If not, you're in trouble. Your marriage is in trouble, and it's going to hurt you. So I want to look at some things really quickly. I'm going to give you some homework. Can some of our ushers come up and just pass some of this stuff out? Hopefully there's enough. Everybody, make sure all the married couples get one first. And what this is a marriage problem analysis. And so I want you guys to go home and do these individually. And then I want you to get together and talk about them. That's tough. The doing them, huh? Yeah, but everybody needs husband and wife. You need
Charles.
Everybody needs one.
Husband and wife needs one.
Because they both have to.
Because they have to do them separately.
Yeah. So make sure the married couples get one, and then we should have enough for everybody. I think we do. So make sure you all get one. All right. Here's what I just want to explain some of these things really quickly. Now, next week we're going to go into depth on how these things work to make you fall in love, because you're not going to stay married if you don't feel the love, right? You got married because you felt in love, hopefully. I don't guess you had to, but hopefully you did. Hopefully you felt in love. So something happened while you were dating that made you fall in love. We've got to find those things again, and hopefully we can explain this and understand. Okay, the first one on your list is affection. And here's how this works. You need to write down these things as the seriousness of these things. Number one is this is serious enough to threaten our marriage unless resolved. Okay, that's a 1. A 2 is serious but not enough to threaten our marriage if left unresolved. This is just one of those things that causes things to be not fulfilling and not satisfying. A 3 is sometimes disappointing, but not really a serious problem, okay? And 4 is this is no problem at all, okay? This is no problem in your marriage. Now, here's what you're going to find, and I promise you this is going to happen. The husband is going to fill this out, and his ones are going to be her fours. If you're in a state of conflict, that's probably what's going to happen. She's going to go, there's nothing wrong with that part. And he's going to go, this is why I'm leaving. And so, do you understand how this is going to be healthy, hopefully? This could just end it all. I don't know. I may just put a dagger in it. I don't know. I always said, and I'm going to tell you, I always said do this naked because it always seems to take the edge off. It's harder to fight that way. That's always my solution for everything, though. So, man, I want to listen to that. My kids love it when I talk like that. All right, so affection, what affection is generally, these are like holding hands and kisses and neck massage, whatever. It's like, am I getting the affection? It's the kind of things like, I would say it's the kind of things you could do in public, right? I mean, just to separate it out. Sexual fulfillment, those are the kind of things you shouldn't do in public. That ought to be self-explanatory, but sexual fulfillment is, it's more than just the act of sex. I want you to understand that, because here's what your husband's not telling you or what you can't hear. A lot of times it's visual. A lot of times it's not the act of sex as much as it is the being wanted. I mean, even if the kids are around and you can't do it, the act of being wanted in a sexual way, it's teasing and those types of things that are fulfilling, especially and mostly for men, but especially for men. That's even, a lot of women think, well, it's just sex. Well, to just have sex is not fulfilling. Like, you can just do it. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not fulfilling. Okay, so sexual fulfillment, so like, that's why a lot of women will say, that's not a problem at all. And a lot of guys are like, that's why we're done. And you're speaking completely different languages, even talking about the same stuff. Intimate conversation. This is when you share your deepest, heartfelt passions, your drives, your desires. Guys, this is when they want to hear what you're afraid of. Like, except for me, I'm not afraid of anything. But that would be a 4 and a 1. So, no, it's like, because the guy's going to say, man, I share everything. Like, she asked me how work was. I says, all right. I shared. And she's like, that's not what she was looking for, okay? Intimate conversation. And some of the things, like, this may not be important to either one of you, so it's like, we really could never talk to each other and we'd be just fine. And that's okay if that's the way both of you are, but if one of you ain't, you got a problem, right? Recreational companionship. This is huge for a lot of couples, especially today. Our world's so active, and I know as you age, you may have done this, our last marriage series, you may have done this and this wasn't an issue, and now it is because you're older and you're tireder and you just don't want to do that crap anymore. And she's 4 years younger and she's still full of energy and on the go. And it's like, nope. So you have these conflicts. And you don't realize when it starts falling off, you're not aware of it. A lot of times, you're not even aware of it yourself, why you're so frustrated. That's why these are so helpful, because it really helps you to see what it is that you're really feeling and being able to communicate it. It's just that important. Okay, honesty and openness. Guys, I don't know how you can stay married without this one. We live as open books, and maybe that causes a lot of fights, but hey, it's better to air stuff than to keep it in for me. I'm like, air everything. And we don't have a problem with that in our house. A lot of times it's just too much, like it's, the kids are like, okay, that's enough openness and honesty around here. Let's just chill out. Physical attractiveness. If this is a big deal for you, you are not shallow. you're going to be told by society that you're being shallow. That's not true. How did you get your husband? How did you get your wife? You weren't a slob. And how you got them is how you keep them. And if you were putting on the Ritz, is that a thing anymore? That was like an 80s thing. That's back when I had hair. If you would dress up and like really do it, you know, big time when you were dating or to attract, like, it's unfair of you women. I'm just going to speak from a guy. It's unfair for you to fish with one bait and then catch them and then never use the bait again. It's unfair. You got to if that's way, look, if you're going to dress like that to catch him, you better be ready to do it for the long haul, because that's what's going to keep him. Physical attractiveness, though, is not a shallow thing, man. It's part of what makes us us. Financial support. This is huge among, well, it used to be really more so among women. It's huge among women. But what I found is this is huge among men too, because there's so many marriages I've seen that fall apart because the husband is providing and the wife goes and spends all the money because she's bored. She's given no financial support. Financial support don't mean you have to be the bread earner. It means you talk about your spending together. It means that using the money is something that we decide, not that I decide or she decides. And so you have to decide how important that is to you. I'd have to say in our marriage, that's one of her most huge love languages. I mean, above and gifts, which puts you in a tight place at the holidays, right? Because you get gifts, but you can't spend any money on them. So it's like,
hey, I'm happy with a pencil.
Really? Write that down, Chance.
If your love language is gifts.
Happy with pencil.
Yeah, if your love language is gifts, it doesn't have to be
We're gonna
expensive.
test that.
It's
Our
just
anniversary's
anything.
next week. Yeah, just a bouquet. Okay.
Just like my Christmas present.
Oh, see, this is going to start a war. We'll clear that up next week.
Carry on.
We're going to fight on stage next week if y'all want to come back. So, yeah, we're roping this area off because it's going to be, yeah. Okay, domestic support. What that is like if you don't help around the house, like if you just throw your stuff down. My kids are like they will take trash. You did it in my truck. I was like, what did you just do? She took a candy wrapper off and threw it on the floor, and I like freaked out. That's a big deal with me. Don't just throw trash on the floor. There's places for that. So domestic support, doing the dishes, picking up your clothes, not living like a pig. It's important to some people.
Me too.
Yeah, and so
Like I like to have him. He needs to have dinner made when I get home, and he needs to have the kitchen clean. He's the housewife in our family. You love it.
I'm not liking this already. Family commitment, this is really important. How committed you are to your children. This used to be a predominantly important to the wife, but not as important to the husband. I think it's kind of turned. I see a lot of fathers that are way more involved in their kids' lives than the mothers are, and so you have to find that balance of what it is that you are seeking, what it means to you.
Because I like for him to be at my kids' events. I like that because when I was a child, it always goes back to when you're a kid. It always does. Of what, I wanted my mom and dad to come watch me do whatever. Well, so it's important to me to be at my kids' events, and it's important for him to be there too, if you see what I'm saying. So.
Yes, it is. And I never needed that. Like, I was out there playing. You couldn't really help me, so, like, why would you be there?
Yeah, he didn't care. So that creates conflict.
Well, it wasn't that important to me. Admiration, guys, this is huge. Your husband may just want to be worshipped. And I don't mean that in like a you know what I mean is, if you're sitting there telling your husband what a loser he is and his greatest need is admiration, you are destroying your relationship. If you're pointing out all of his faults and all of his failures, and if you're always on him about what he's not doing, you're killing it. And it's real hard to be honest, because you sound like such a sissy if you say, I really need admiration. But listen, this whole thing is about not having an affair. It's about affair-proofing your marriage. And what happens is, if there's somebody at work that's giving the admiration that you're not giving your spouse, they're falling in love with them. They're feeling love and experiencing love from someone else. You don't want that. You want all the love in your relationship to come from you. I don't want anybody else loving on her. Like, if she needs admiration, I want to give it, because I don't want her going, oh, man, I just love being around them. They just admire me. Well, that's bad. I have to kill somebody. Won't be admiring you long. Admire this. No. Admire my new 12 gauge. No. Just kidding. Don't do that either. That's against the rules. Selfish demands. It's kind of self-explanatory. Like, if you're self-centered, that's not attractive. You're not making anybody love. No. If you're all about you, people don't like that. Like, your wife, your husband's not going to like it. Your friends aren't going to like it. Your kids aren't going to like it. That's not an attractive quality of life. Being self-centered is not attractive. So that's just like ridiculous. That shouldn't be, If that's important to you, or like that's not important, being selfish, then like you need to like check up and see, you're like a little narcissistic maybe. Disrespectful judgments. I talked about that with admiration, but there's ways to say pick up the trash and being respectful about it. As disrespectful judgments, maybe that's a problem. Well, maybe, you say that's a 1, but your husband is saying that's a 4. Do you see the problem? One of you is disrespecting the other, and it's obvious who's doing it to who if that's the way your answers fall. Angry outburst. Man, that's something that maturity has to get that guy. At some point, you just got to grow up. Being enraged and being angry and always at the point of angry outburst, that's an immaturity thing. Like, you got to learn to hold your tongue. You got to learn how to have a communication. Like, that's something 16, 17-year-olds do. That's something like, my daughter's 17, and so she has these angry outbursts, and she drives me to them. But that's something that an immature, undeveloped mind does. As we grow up, one of the signs of growing up, what? What'd I do?
That was a disrespectful to her.
I'm sorry. Well, you yell at me. I'm sorry, Justice.
Told you it gets real.
It's going to be real. Okay. Anyway, we gotta learn to control ourselves. Self-control is part of just maturity. So, hey, man, I'll say this about Justice though. She's a pretty good kid. She handles herself very maturely most of the time. Better than I ever did when I was 30. So, that's good. Dishonesty. That may be hard to answer on this, because if you're dishonest, you may just you'd be not truthful on this. So it's like you can't trust any of your own answers. It's kind of a catch-22, right? Annoying habits. Everybody's got them. So how important is it? Man, some things just get more important the older you get. There's some annoying habits that just wear me out. Here's one, just an example. Off the top of my head, I can't stand that somebody will set an alarm when they have no intention of getting up. Why not just set the alarm for the time you're going to get up and then get up? There's no reason to get up 5 times before you get up. Annoying habits. I wouldn't say I wouldn't put my marriage in danger, but it changes my mood for the morning. Independent behavior, that means you don't really consider, that's just like, I do this. One of the things, like I always talk to people, they're called like golf widows. Their husbands are just independent. I play golf and you deal with it. And it's kind of like one of those things, well, independent behaviors, things that are just, I do this and you married me when I did this and this is just who I am and you deal with it. Well, that may not be a big deal when you've been married 5 years, but when you've been married 20 years and they are okay to say, you know what, I'm sick of your golf, and then you find your golf clubs in the leaf shredder or whatever, it's, it can escalate. So anyway, your homework is to go through these individually and be honest with them and really, really go through them. And then come back and share with each other and look at, we're not on the same page in a lot of this stuff. And you can start to understand, hopefully you'll start to understand where the problem areas of your relationship are. And so next week we're going to go into how to deal with and how to make the most out of understanding all of these things and capitalizing your relationship. So.
And even if you've done it before, remember, you change. You change so
I have to do one
so.
every 6 weeks.
Yeah, you change a lot.
Kind of ADD in my whole being. Okay, there's a couple of books I want to, if you're in Marriage 911 right now, I want you to just understand there's resources that are out there. You can go to Dr. Harley's website, marriagebuilders.com. Read everything. They have he does talks on there so you can get the things. Also, he's got a radio show that's got the podcast too, the webcast. There's other things in here also dealing with marriage infidelity, dealing with blended family, dealing with sexual aversion, some of these real problems in marriage, and there's a lot of help on that website.
Dave Willis is another good website. I can't remember. I think it's just Dave Willis, WILLIS.com, I believe. His Needs, Her Needs.
His Needs, Her Needs. That book saved our marriage. His Needs, Her Needs. I was able to take that book and say, this is me. Read this, because I can't tell you what's going on with me, but this is me. This is what's wrong with me. And that was great.
Love languages.
The 5 love languages, Chapman.
I think Gary Chapman. Yeah. Okay.
5 love languages.
That's great.
Is
Use for your kids.
A great book.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
That's such a great.
If you're having issues, if you're in a dependency relationship, addictions, and things like that, there's a book called Boundaries. That is a must read. If you're having trouble with your kids, there's a lot of things you need to read Boundaries for. I can't remember. Anybody remember who wrote Boundaries?
There's several of them. Boundaries.
Yeah. You'll find that one.
It's
it's everywhere.
One for marriage, one for kids. There's a lot of
Stormy O'Martin's book, Power of a Praying. There's a Power of a Praying Wife, Power of a Praying Husband, Power of Praying Together, the Power of Praying Parent. Those books, if you've never prayed in your life and you don't even believe in prayer, maybe you're so far it's just not going to work. Trust me, there is power in communicating and sharing with God. And so those books are extremely helpful. Guys, let me tell you this, though. Your marriage will not right itself. it's not going to fix itself. If you're in this place, you didn't get there overnight, you probably won't get out overnight. There's not a magic bullet. And it's not going to just all of a sudden come around. Well, I'm just going to bear with it because it'll come around. Not if you don't do anything. You know, there's a law that objects in motion continue to stay in motion. And once those things are started, unless acted on by an outside force, unless you do something about it, it's going to continue in that same direction. Things will not get better, they'll get worse. And so you have to do the work if you want to change things.
But if you're in a hurry and you do it in like 7 days, come back next week and we'll show you how.
If you want to stop the, like
Stop the bleeding.
yeah, there was this thing when we went through in the Marines, and it was like if somebody, if you come up and bad things happen, it's like stop the bleeding, start the breathing, protect the wound, and treat for shock. Like there's this, thing you do. If you need triage, like you need something now, next week, we're going to give you a change the direction. I'm not saying fix, but change the direction of your marriage in 7 days, okay? And we're going to do that next week. We'll share with that.
She said, don't